Every shot in a movie is chosen for one reason: to make us feel something. The sequencing of the shots are so meaningful that they are etched in our hearts forever. I've been studying movies a lot recently, and I learned that nearly all visual storytelling can be done using these three beginner-friendly shots. And we'll also explore a complementary shot that cinematographers use to tell the audience when to lean in and when to let go. Before we meet any characters, we have to let the audience know where the scene is about to unfold. That's the role of an establishing shot, which sets the context for our following frames of the story. Filmmakers often use 16 to 24 mm lenses to open scenes, establishing scale and spatial awareness. Sometimes the establishing shot can be as grand as futuristic LA or just an ordinary weekend in a park. This shot gives the audience implicit details that are often underlooked, like the time of the day, weather, and the ambience of the story. In Sicario, a quiet detail reveals the real function of an establishing shot. When FBI storms a suspected drug house, tension lives in the environment. The follow-up shots of dust drifting by the curtains, humidity clinging to the skin, it all feels very heavy. Because earlier, our minds have established that we are situated in a sun-bleached, quiet, and an isolated desert of Chandler, Arizona. In Blade Runner, Denis Villeneuve uses vast context shots to make humans feel insignificant. The scale at which LA has been taken over by the skyscrapers sets an expectation of a bleak future, and that makes this movie a cinematic masterpiece. That does not mean we always have to build these theatric movie sets for establishing a shot. And that's why I admire Paul Thomas Anderson and Michael Bauman for their work in One Battle After Another. We can draw some inspiration about the composition of these wide shots in the natural world that is available to all of us. So once we know where we are, the next question becomes, who are we watching? And that's the subject shot. Conventionally used after the establishing shot, the subject shot introduces the character to the audience. This is where we often see one character or even multiple of them naturally existing in their environment set by the context shot. Also referred to as a medium shot, it's usually framed from the chest or waist up to show their presence. Filmmakers often use 30 to 50 mm lenses, moving close enough to hear them, but not so close that we are invading their personal space. A beautiful example of extreme wide to wide and then to medium appears in Blade Runner, where characters are first implied through space, then revealed through an architecture, and only later to be brought into conversational distance. We also observe intentional lighting during these medium shots, especially in a movie like Prisoners, where the tension is all in the conversations. At this point, audience understands who the characters are, but now comes the critical question: what do we want the audience to feel? Imagine a scenario where your friend is just going through a breakup. You want to support them, but you can't console them or even provide comfort if you're not within 1 feet of distance. The point is, filmmakers use this concept and place the camera so close to the subject that they want the audience to feel whatever the subject is feeling. Because now we have moved from wide to medium to roughly 1 feet of distance. And this is why this is called an emotion shot. In Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan uses close-ups to force the audience into characters' psychological state. Close-ups often mark moments of realization or act as precursor to a large-scale action. We can get creative by capturing the close-up of the objects along with the characters, bringing more depth to the story. There are no set-in-stone rules to follow the order of these 3 shots. Cinematographers like Michael Bauman consistently chose to break the conventional flow of these 3 shots by starting with a medium and then establishing the location. One of the greatest cinematographers, Roger Deakins, uses wide to close up and then to a medium in our desert scene because the emotion of the subject is more important than any conversation. If noticed closely, one of the most important shots that brings all of these 3 shots to life is the camera movement, moving intentionally towards or away from the subject. Technically called a dolly in or a dolly out shot, this is a conventional way of allowing the audience to enter or exit a moment gradually. Dolly in shots can be used in establishing or medium shots to slowly introduce the scene. Or it can also be used to transition from a medium to close-up. Dolly out shots, when used just after close-up shots, signals emotional resolution. I have recently started storyboarding my shots with some intention because each shot is responsible to make us feel something. A lot of time and effort goes into visualizing these shots beforehand, and that's exactly what Off the Record is for. We talk about everything and anything that comes before we press record. Cinematic storytelling is not only about these shots, it's about lights, composition, color, and many more simple concepts like that. I will try my best to break these down into applicable concepts, but until then, keep creating.